she is a much more valuable target to them if they had foreknowledge of whose mother she was.
Right.
That doesn't take a deep dive here. And so if they think that they can get anything out of her, so I think that comes to local knowledge.
February 1st, 2026, a masked man stands on the porch of an 84-year-old woman's home in Tucson, Arizona. He is not there by accident. He is not there because this house happened to be unlocked. He is not there because he saw an opportunity and took it. He is there because he chose this house. He chose this woman. He chose this moment. Nancy Guthrie, 84 years old, lives alone, walks with difficulty, requires a pacemaker to keep her heart beating, needs daily medication to stay alive. In a neighborhood of hundreds of homes, in a city of over 500,000 people, someone decided Nancy Guthrie was the target. Not randomly, not for money. For reasons 6 former FBI profilers have spent the last month analyzing, studying the evidence, examining the behavior, reconstructing the psychology of whoever planned this crime. And what they concluded will change everything you thought you knew about this case. Nancy Ellen Guthrie was born Nancy Ellen Long on January 27, 1942, in Fort Wright, Kentucky. She lived a life defined by family, faith, and resilience. She married Charles Guthrie, and together they built a life in Tucson, Arizona, where they raised 3 children, Savannah, Annie, and Cameron. Charles Guthrie died in 1988 at age 49 during a mining exploration trip in Mexico. Nancy became a widow at 46, left to raise her children alone. She did so with grace, with strength, with the kind of quiet determination that defines a generation. She remained in Tucson for more than 5 decades. The same community, the same neighborhood, the same house where she would eventually disappear. By 2026, Nancy was 84 years old. She had serious medical conditions requiring daily medication. She had a pacemaker implanted to regulate her heart rhythm. She had difficulty walking and could not travel more than 50 yards without assistance. She lived alone in a house in the Catalina foothills area of Tucson, a quiet residential neighborhood, tree-lined streets, homes set back from the road, the kind of place where neighbors know each other and crime feels distant. Her daughter, Savannah Guthrie, had become one of the most recognizable faces in American media, co-anchor of NBC's Today Show, a household name, someone whose face appears on television screens across the country every weekday morning. But Nancy did not live in that world. She lived quietly. She attended virtual church services. She spent time with family when they visited. She managed her health conditions with the help of caregivers and medical professionals. She maintained her independence as much as her physical limitations allowed. On the evening of January 31st, 2026, Nancy had dinner with her daughter Annie and Annie's family. They left around 9:30 p.m. Nancy went to bed. At some point between 1:47 a.m. and 2:28 a.m. on February 1st, someone entered her home. Someone who had been watching. Someone who had been planning. Someone who knew exactly when to strike. Nancy Guthrie disappeared, and the question that has haunted investigators ever since is simple but devastating. Why her? Before we go deeper into what 6 FBI profilers discovered about why Nancy Guthrie was chosen, subscribe to Crime Uncovered right now. We investigate cases where the truth is still emerging, where evidence tells a story the headlines miss, where expert analysis reveals what really happened beneath the surface. Hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. Because understanding how criminal minds select their victims could save lives. In the first days after Nancy Guthrie disappeared, one theory dominated online speculation. This was a burglary gone wrong, a random home invasion, someone driving through the neighborhood looking for an easy target. They chose Nancy's house by chance. Something went wrong. They panicked. They took her. It made sense to people who wanted this to make sense. Random crime feels safer somehow. If it was random, it could happen to anyone. But if it was targeted, that means someone chose this, planned this, executed this with precision. Greg Rogers spent more than 2 decades as a special agent with the FBI investigating complex criminal and national security matters. He retired from the Bureau in September 2017. When asked about the random burglary theory in an exclusive interview with Parade, his response was immediate and definitive. "I have never thought this was a robbery gone wrong. Never. Not for a single moment. Not from the first time he saw the evidence." Rogers explained his reasoning with the kind of clarity that comes from years of studying criminal behavior. There were too many opportunities to have hit the house when nobody was home. There are a good number of interstate home burglars that are much more careful. Case homes know when the owners are away and are in and out in minutes. They do not hit residences when it is almost guaranteed someone is home. Think about what Rogers is saying. Professional burglars operate on a simple principle: maximize gain, minimize risk. They watch houses, they learn schedules, they know when people leave for work, when they go on vacation, when the house sits empty for hours. They do not break into occupied homes in the middle of the night. That is the highest risk scenario possible. The resident could wake up, could call police, could have a weapon, could fight back. Everything burglars try to avoid happens when you enter an occupied residence. So why choose 2 a.m. when Nancy Guthrie was almost certainly home and asleep? Why choose the moment of maximum risk instead of waiting for the house to be empty during the day? Because this was never about burglary. Tracy Walder, former FBI agent and CIA officer, reinforced this analysis in an interview with News Nation's Brian Enton. She said she does not believe for a second this could be a burglary gone wrong. In a burglary, we don't tend to see them taking a victim with them. That just tends not to be the case because it bogs them down. Burglars want to get in and get out. They grab valuables: cash, jewelry, electronics, items they can carry quickly and fence easily. They do not want to deal with a person. A person screams. A person fights. A person becomes a witness who can identify them. A person turns burglary into kidnapping, which carries exponentially harsher penalties. Taking Nancy Guthrie with them made no sense if this was about theft. And here is the detail that destroys the burglary theory completely. There has been no confirmation that any valuables were taken from Nancy's home. No reports of missing jewelry. No emptied drawers. No ransacked rooms. Nothing that suggests someone came to steal property. Rogers pointed to this absence of evidence as critical. There hasn't been any confirmation that valuables were removed from Guthrie's home, which also seems to rule out the botched robbery idea. If you break into a house to steal and you end up kidnapping someone instead, you still take something. You do not leave empty-handed except for the victim. That makes no criminal sense whatsoever. Tracy Walder went further. She described the level of targeting as incompatible with random crime. It's just too targeted. This is not a house that you just come upon and decide to rob. It's just not that. Nancy's home sits in the Catalina foothills. This is not a neighborhood you drive through by accident. The roads do not serve as thoroughfares. If you are in that neighborhood, you meant to go to that neighborhood. You had a reason. You had a destination. The house itself is set back from the road. It is not the kind of property where someone walking by could casually assess whether it is a good target. You need to approach intentionally, to observe deliberately, to study the layout and the routines and the vulnerabilities over time. Gregg McCrary, one of the founding architects of modern criminal profiling, said it plainly. This appears to be a targeted crime. He just didn't knock on the door randomly and bump into Ms. Guthrie. Different experts, all with decades of experience studying criminal behavior, all analyzing the same evidence independently, all reaching the same conclusion. This was not random. This was not opportunistic. This was not a crime of chance. Nancy Guthrie was chosen deliberately, intentionally, with planning and forethought, which raises the next question. If it was not random, was it about money? On February 24, 2026, Savannah Guthrie announced that her family was offering a reward of up to $1 million for information leading directly to Nancy's recovery. $1 million. Cash. No strings attached. Anonymous tips accepted. In addition, the FBI offered $50,000 for information leading to Nancy's recovery or arrests and convictions. Combined reward total, $1,050,000. In most kidnapping cases, a reward of that magnitude generates immediate response. Tips flood in. People with information come forward. Someone who knows something decides the money is worth the risk of cooperating. But in Nancy's case, the reward produced nothing definitive. No breakthrough, no confession, no credible tip that led investigators to Nancy or to whoever took her. And that silence told former FBI agent Jim Fitzgerald everything he needed to know about motive. Fitzgerald appeared on Megyn Kelly's show on February 27, 2026. He addressed the reward directly. His analysis was devastating in its simplicity. Why was Mrs. Guthrie taken from her home around 2 a.m. that Sunday morning? That we don't know. If it was about money, maybe this is a chance to then capitalize on it. He paused, let that sink in, then delivered the conclusion that reframed the entire case. If they don't react to this $1 million reward with virtually no strings attached, that would lean me toward the fact this is a highly personal crime done for highly personal reasons, and money was never a factor. Think about what Fitzgerald is saying. If you kidnapped someone for ransom, you have now been offered exactly what you wanted, $1 million. The family is desperate. They are willing to pay. They have said so publicly, repeatedly, in video messages pleading for Nancy's return. The path to getting that money is clear. Contact the family, provide proof Nancy is alive, make the exchange, collect the reward, disappear. But that did not happen. Weeks passed. The reward remained unclaimed. No legitimate ransom demand emerged. No proof of life was provided despite the family begging for it. Several alleged ransom notes surfaced early in the investigation. Some were sent to media outlets like TMZ. Some claimed to demand payment in cryptocurrency. But authorities quickly determined most, if not all, were hoaxes. People trying to insert themselves into a high-profile case, generating false leads that wasted investigative resources. The FBI addressed these notes publicly, confirming they were reviewing them but providing no indication any were legitimate. Sheriff Chris Nanos told media that determining the validity of these notes was part of the ongoing investigation, but he offered no confirmation they came from whoever actually took Nancy. And critically, none of these alleged ransom demands resulted in any actual exchange. No payment was made, no proof of life was provided, no negotiations occurred. If this was about money, that sequence of events makes no sense. You do not kidnap someone for ransom, watch the family offer $1 million publicly, and then do nothing. That is not how ransom kidnappings work. Fitzgerald said it explicitly. The lack of response to the reward suggests money was never the primary motivation. This was personal. This was about something other than financial gain. Joseph Scott Morgan, a forensic analyst, offered a related but distinct theory in an interview with News Nation. He suggested this could be an extortion plot, but not in the traditional sense. Not someone demanding ransom for Nancy's return. Instead, someone who targeted Nancy because they knew her daughter was wealthy and famous. I've had people that have taken advantage of the elderly because they knew that they had money, and they bum rush them into their house and they snatch them out of there, or they do terrible things. Morgan suggested Nancy would be a much more valuable target if her abductor knew who her daughter was. Not because they intended to ransom Nancy back to Savannah, but because taking Savannah Guthrie's mother creates maximum emotional devastation, maximum public attention, maximum psychological impact. This theory aligns with what Jim Clemente, retired FBI profiler, described in his analysis. He said the offender's apparent fixation on the family, possibly linked to celebrity status, points to a desire for emotional manipulation rather than financial gain. Getting an emotional reaction from Savannah Guthrie may have been sufficient for the offender's goals. Read that again. The goal was not money. The goal was the reaction. The goal was watching Savannah Guthrie on national television, visibly devastated, begging for her mother's return. The goal was the power of making one of the most famous women in America feel helpless. That is not a financial crime. That is a crime of control, of obsession, of wanting to insert yourself into someone's life in the most violent way possible. Mary Ellen O'Toole, former senior FBI profiler who worked in the behavioral analysis unit for more than a decade, mentioned the Zodiac killer when discussing this case. The Zodiac sent letters to newspapers, taunted investigators publicly, craved the media attention his crimes generated. O'Toole said she keeps that pattern in mind when looking at Nancy's case. The suspect chose to send ransom notes to news stations. He went to TMZ. He made demands that he knew would be public. He did not just want Nancy Guthrie. He wanted the world to watch what he had done. That is not someone motivated by money. That is someone motivated by notoriety, by feeling powerful, by inserting himself into a story that will be remembered. Multiple independent analyses, all reaching variations of the same conclusion. This was not about money. The reward remains unclaimed. The ransom demands were likely fake. The actual motivation lies elsewhere. Which brings us to the question these experts spent weeks trying to answer. If it was not random and it was not money, why was Nancy Guthrie chosen? Mary Ellen O'Toole posed the central question that every investigator working this case must answer. Was Nancy targeted because she was Savannah Guthrie's mother? Or was she targeted because she was an 84-year-old woman with a pacemaker who lived alone? Two completely different criminals, Two completely different motivations. Two completely different psychological profiles. Understanding which path is correct determines everything about how investigators build their case, about who they look for, about what evidence matters most. Consider the second possibility first. Nancy targeted not because of who her daughter is, but because of who Nancy herself was. 84 years old, limited mobility, lived alone, pacemaker dependent, daily medication required. To understand what this profile means to a predator, you have to think like one. An elderly woman living alone represents something specific in criminal psychology. She represents accessible vulnerability, someone you can control with minimal risk, someone who cannot chase you, cannot overpower you, cannot escape once you have established dominance. Jim Clemente walked through how someone builds this kind of knowledge. Picture a plumber who came to fix Nancy's sink 2 years ago. He walks through the house to reach the bathroom. He sees the layout, the medical equipment visible in the bedroom, the grab bars in the shower, the walker near the chair. He makes conversation while he works, learns she lives alone, that her husband died decades ago, that her children visit but do not live nearby. That plumber leaves, does his job, gets paid, drives away. For most people, that interaction ends there. But for someone with predatory inclinations, that information gets filed away, stored in a mental catalog of potential victims. Years pass. That plumber, or electrician, or pool cleaner, or yard worker decides to act. Maybe he has done this before to other elderly women. Maybe this is his first time crossing from fantasy into action. Either way, he knows exactly where to go. He remembers Nancy Guthrie, the woman who lived alone with the pacemaker and the limited mobility and no one there to protect her. Greg Rogers emphasized this theory directly. I think it is highly likely that someone who knew Guthrie and/or had something to do with her, home maintenance, healthcare, yard, and pool care, was involved. One of those persons could have been hired to give info about security systems, Guthrie's schedule, and so on. That person could have also worked in one of those positions to be able to learn that same information. This is the nightmare that keeps people awake at night, because you cannot prevent it with better locks. You cannot stop it with alarm systems. Every time you let someone into your home for legitimate work, you are giving them information about your vulnerabilities. Most people are trustworthy, but the ones who are not take that information and use it in ways you never imagined. The doorbell camera footage supports this theory in ways that make investigators deeply uncomfortable. Mary Ellen O'Toole studied that footage frame by frame. She was not looking for what the suspect did. She was looking for how he felt while doing it. The first thing that I look for in a crime scene is, was the offender as nervous as the situation called for? You and I wouldn't commit this crime. But also, if we did, we would be nervous wrecks. You don't really see that in this offender. The suspect moved with a kind of casual confidence that should not exist in someone committing their first major crime. He was not racing around, not constantly checking over his shoulder, not exhibiting the kind of panic that comes with being somewhere you absolutely should not be doing something you know is wrong. O'Toole described him as appearing almost comfortable on Nancy's porch, like he had been there before, or like he had done something similar enough times that the fear had worn off and been replaced by routine. The way he dressed revealed even more. Wrapped up tight from the waist up, heavy gloves that restricted movement but prevented fingerprints, face covered, clothing designed to minimize forensic evidence. O'Toole asked the question that reframes everything. If this is the first time you've done something like this, how do you know how to dress like that? What are you preventing if you've never been in the situation before? You learn that from experience, either from prior crimes or from extensive research and planning. Someone deciding to commit their first kidnapping does not automatically know to wear clothing that prevents skin cells from shedding. They do not know that saliva carries DNA. They do not know that hair follicles can be traced. You learn those things from studying forensics, or from having made mistakes before and learning from them. The timeline inside the house matters too. 41 minutes between when the doorbell camera was disabled and when Nancy's pacemaker stopped syncing with her iPhone. 41 minutes is not a grab and go. That is time spent controlling a victim, preparing for transport, ensuring compliance, cleaning up evidence, operating with a level of calm that suggests either experience or psychopathic detachment from the enormity of what is happening. Jim Clemente pointed to this. If his goal was to go in and get out, then he failed at that. It may indicate that his goal was something else and this became an afterthought, or the result of something going wrong. or it indicates the goal always required time, required careful execution, required operating inside an occupied home long enough to accomplish whatever the actual objective was. Someone targeting Nancy specifically for her vulnerability understands her medical needs, knows about the medications keeping her alive, knows about the pacemaker, knows that an 84-year-old woman cannot survive extended periods without proper care. If the goal is to keep her alive somewhere, that person needs medical knowledge or access to someone who does. That narrows the profile considerably. But there is another path, another theory that has dominated expert analysis since the beginning. What if Nancy was not chosen because of who she was, but because of who her daughter is? Tracy Walder did not want to say it publicly. She hesitated, because she never wanted Savannah Guthrie to think any of this was her fault. But after analyzing the evidence, after studying the pattern, after considering what makes sense and what does not, Walder reached a conclusion she felt compelled to share. I do think that was someone that was either upset with something Savannah Guthrie had done, or had some obsession with her, and that's why they targeted this family. Two possibilities: someone angry at Savannah for something she said or did on television, or someone obsessed with her, fixated on a celebrity they feel connected to despite never having met her. Both scenarios lead to the same outcome. The most devastating way to hurt Savannah Guthrie, a woman on national television surrounded by security and impossible to reach directly, is to go after the person she loves most, her mother. Walder emphasized this is not Savannah's fault. I was being cautious to say that because I never want her to think it's her fault. It's not her fault that this person did something like this, but that's just how I feel. The targeting was simply too specific, too calculated, too focused on this particular family and this particular house. It's just too targeted. This is not a house that you just come upon and decide to rob. It's just not that. If you wanted to hurt Savannah Guthrie emotionally, psychologically, in a way that would be visible to the entire country, taking her mother accomplishes that goal completely. And we have seen exactly that happen. Savannah on television, visibly devastated, begging for her mother's return. Savannah posting video messages addressing the kidnappers directly. Savannah's face on every news outlet showing the world her grief. If the goal was to make Savannah suffer publicly, to insert yourself into her life in the most violent way possible, to feel powerful by bringing one of America's most famous women to her knees, this crime accomplished exactly that. Jim Clemente described the psychology behind this type of obsession. Automatic stalkers feel a connection to their victims even though that connection exists only in their mind. They build elaborate fantasies. They imagine relationships that do not exist. They believe they know these public figures intimately because they see them on television every day. When reality does not match the fantasy, when the celebrity does not respond the way the stalker imagined, when the parasocial relationship breaks down, violence can result. Clemente said getting an emotional reaction from Savannah Guthrie may have been sufficient for the offender's goals. Not money, not ransom, just the reaction, just seeing Savannah devastated, just knowing he had that power over her life. Gregg McCrary explored this from another angle. He discussed someone celebrity-focused, or fixated or obsessed with the Guthries in general perhaps, or Savannah or her mother. This person talks about them, references them in conversation, pays unusual attention to Savannah's television appearances or social media posts. If somebody fits that physical description, seems to have some fixation on the Guthries prior to this, and now has kind of disappeared or his normal routine is gone, those things start stacking up. This is where public awareness becomes critical. If someone you know matches the physical description released by the FBI, and that person talked frequently about Savannah Guthrie or seemed obsessed with the Today Show or the Guthrie family, and that person's routine changed dramatically after February 1st, those details matter. The Savannah connection theory explains aspects of this crime other theories struggle with. It explains why the suspect sent ransom notes to media outlets. He wanted publicity. He wanted the story on television. He wanted Savannah to know what he had done. It explains why he did not collect the $1 million reward. Money was never the point. The emotional reaction was the point. The power was the point. Making Savannah suffer publicly was the goal. It explains the timing. February 1st fell during a period when Savannah was scheduled to co-host major events. Taking her mother forced her to step away from those responsibilities. It disrupted her life completely, made her vulnerable in ways she had never been vulnerable before. It explains the level of planning. If your goal is to hurt a celebrity by targeting their family member, you research thoroughly. You learn where the mother lives. You study her routine. You identify vulnerabilities. You plan the approach. You rehearse the execution. But this theory carries a darker implication. If this was about Savannah, then Nancy herself was not really the target. Nancy was the weapon, the tool used to hurt Savannah, the means to an end. Nancy became collateral damage in someone's obsession with her daughter. That is a level of cruelty that goes beyond financial motivation, beyond opportunistic crime. This is psychological warfare executed against a public figure through the most vulnerable person in her life. Mary Ellen O'Toole's reference to the Zodiac Killer takes on new meaning in this context. The Zodiac wanted attention. He sent letters to newspapers, created ciphers, taunted police, made his crimes about the story, about the media coverage, about inserting himself into the public consciousness. If this suspect has similar motivations, Nancy's kidnapping was never just about Nancy. It was about creating a national news story, about making people pay attention, about being at the center of something that would be discussed and analyzed and remembered. The suspect has almost certainly been following the media coverage obsessively, reading every article, watching every news segment, seeing Savannah's video messages, absorbing every development, feeling powerful because he created all of this. Gregg McCrary suggested a third possibility that bridges both theories in a way that makes disturbing sense. What if it is both? What if someone noticed Nancy, discovered through normal life that she was Savannah's mother, and built a fantasy that connected both women into a single terrifying plan? Someone who provides services in that neighborhood, someone who had been to Nancy's house for legitimate work, someone who recognized her as vulnerable and then learned who her daughter was. That combination is irresistible to a certain type of offender. Vulnerable victim plus celebrity connection equals perfect target. They satisfy the predatory urge to control someone weaker, and they satisfy the obsessive need to insert themselves into a celebrity's life. Two motivations fulfilled by one crime. McCrary said if someone fits the physical description and had some fixation on the Guthries before this and has now disappeared from their normal routine, those things start stacking up. Different theories, different angles, but all arriving at the same fundamental conclusions. Not random, not money. Targeted selection based on specific characteristics, either Nancy's vulnerability or Savannah's fame, or both. Understanding who plans this kind of crime requires looking at what the suspect did, how he did it, and what mistakes he made along the way. Jim Clemente was clear. This is not a professional operation. The suspect took extraordinary risks by entering an occupied home. He made mistakes. He left DNA traces. He exposed parts of his face despite wearing gloves, a mask, and protective clothing. The suspect did not fully cover his mouth. That means for 41 minutes inside Nancy's house, he was breathing out DNA, saliva particles, cellular material, biological evidence that can be analyzed through genetic genealogy databases. His eyes, eyebrows, eyelashes, and some of his mustache hair were all exposed. Any of those could have fallen out and been left at the crime scene. The suspect also revealed what appears to be a tattoo on his right wrist while trying to cover the doorbell camera. Tattoos are traceable. Regional styles, prison-specific markings, gang affiliation symbols, custom designs that can be connected to specific artists in specific cities. Clemente said these are really big mistakes for someone who took the time to wear one mask, maybe two, at least one pair of gloves, maybe two, and a full bodysuit over his other clothing. He was trying to be forensically aware. He understood the need to avoid leaving evidence, but he failed in critical ways that could lead to his identification. That combination suggests someone who researched how to commit a crime without leaving evidence, but did not execute perfectly. Someone who has some knowledge but not professional-level expertise. Someone who may have committed crimes before but is not a seasoned, experienced offender. Clemente described the suspect as likely a male in his 30s or 40s. Younger offenders tend to be more impulsive, less organized. Older offenders tend to have either learned through experience or aged out of this type of violent crime. The 30s to 40s range represents the peak for organized, planned, but not professionally executed crimes. The suspect's behavior shows pre-offense and post-offense stress. Clemente said people close to this offender very likely were aware of him preparing for the crime. He probably spoke to acquaintances about his plans or intentions, though not in explicit terms. He may have changed his routine in the days leading up to February 1st, made excuses for why he would be unavailable or out of town. After the crime, his stress level would be even higher. Gregg McCrary emphasized this. His normal routine, going to work, going to the coffee shop, doing whatever, highly unlikely that has remained the same. He's got a victim to take care of. If Nancy is being held somewhere, this person has to manage her care, her medications, her medical needs. Her pacemaker requires monitoring. Her age and health conditions mean she cannot be left alone for extended periods without risk of medical emergency. That creates logistical challenges that force behavioral changes. Someone who used to go to work every day might suddenly call in sick repeatedly. Someone who used to be social might withdraw. Someone who used to maintain a normal routine might disappear for days at a time. Those changes are visible to people who know this person well: family members, co-workers, friends, neighbors. The public should be looking for somebody who has been under stress for the last several weeks. Someone who did not show up for work. Someone who called in sick repeatedly. Someone who bagged out of social responsibilities. Someone who seemed anxious, distracted, different than usual. Clemente also suggested the suspect may have attempted to change his appearance, cut his hair, shaved, change the way he dresses. These are common post-offense behaviors. Offenders know their image has been distributed. They know people are looking. They try to alter how they look to avoid recognition. He may have tried to change or hide his car, maybe painted it, cleaned it really thoroughly, more than he normally does. Offenders obsess over evidence in their vehicles. They vacuum excessively. They detail the interior repeatedly. They worry about trace evidence connecting them to the crime. He may have left the area temporarily, made an excuse about going on vacation or visiting family, put distance between himself and Tucson to create an alibi or reduce the stress of being in the location where the crime occurred. Mary Ellen O'Toole emphasized that this person is very likely preoccupied with the media coverage of this case, obsessively following every development, reading every article, watching every news segment, tracking how the investigation is progressing. That obsession is visible to people close to him. If someone you know has been unusually focused on the Nancy Guthrie case, watching every update, talking about it constantly, that could be significant. Offenders often cannot help themselves. They insert themselves into discussions about their own crimes. They want to know what police know. They want to see how close investigators are getting. The offender's apparent fixation on the family, possibly linked to celebrity status, points to someone who had a pre-existing interest in the Guthries. If someone in your life talked frequently about Savannah Guthrie before February 1st, if they seemed to know a lot about her personal life, her schedule, her family, if they expressed strong opinions about her, either positive or negative, if they seemed unusually invested in her career or her public image, those conversations matter. And if after February 1st that person's routine changed, they became less available, more stressed, different in ways people noticed but maybe did not connect to the crime, all of those behavioral indicators matter. The evidence points in a specific direction when you understand how criminals think and how crimes are planned. Random crimes have patterns. They are impulsive, opportunistic, involve mistakes born of lack of planning. The crime scene looks chaotic. The execution looks rushed. The offender makes obvious errors that reveal they did not think this through. Nancy's case shows none of those patterns. The doorbell camera footage shows someone moving deliberately. The timeline shows 41 minutes inside the house, suggesting controlled execution rather than panicked flight. The forensic awareness shown by the clothing and protective gear suggests planning and research. Financial crimes have patterns. They involve demands. They involve negotiations. They involve attempts to collect payment. When a $1 million reward is offered and ignored, that tells investigators everything they need to know about whether money was the primary motive. Targeted crimes have patterns. They involve surveillance. They involve learning routines and vulnerabilities. They involve selecting victims based on specific characteristics. They involve timing the crime for maximum chance of success. Everything about Nancy's case fits the pattern of targeted crime. Someone watched. Someone planned. Someone chose the moment when Nancy would be most vulnerable and the neighborhood would be most quiet. Someone knew enough about her to execute this crime with precision. The consensus across different analytical approaches points to fundamental truths about this crime that the public needs to understand. Nancy was not random. She was researched. She was observed. Her routines, her vulnerabilities, her isolation were all studied. Someone knew she lived alone. Someone knew about her pacemaker. Someone knew about her mobility limitations. And someone, whether motivated by hatred of her famous daughter, or by predatory calculation, or by something in between, made a decision that Nancy Guthrie was the target, that her home was the location, that 2 a.m. on February 1st was the moment, and that whatever they wanted from this crime, whether it was power or revenge or control or something darker, Nancy Guthrie was the way to get it. Understanding that Nancy was deliberately chosen changes everything about how investigators approach this case. If this was random, investigators would focus on known burglars in the area, people with histories of home invasions, criminals who operate opportunistically. The pool of suspects would be anyone who commits property crimes. If this was about money, investigators would focus on tracking the ransom demands, analyzing cryptocurrency transactions, monitoring communications between potential kidnappers and the family, following the money trail. But because this was targeted and not about money, the investigation focuses on a much narrower set of possibilities. Investigators are looking for someone who had knowledge about Nancy, about her routine, about her vulnerabilities, about when she would be alone, about the layout of her house, about her medical conditions. That knowledge comes from somewhere, either from direct contact with Nancy through service work or health care, or from extensive surveillance, or from connection to someone who had that access. Investigators are analyzing everyone who had legitimate reasons to be at Nancy's house: repair workers, healthcare providers, delivery drivers, landscapers, pool maintenance, anyone who saw Nancy's living situation and assessed her vulnerability. They are reviewing years of service records, cross-referencing names against criminal databases, looking for anyone with a history that suggests predatory behavior toward elderly victims. They are also investigating anyone with connections to Savannah, former colleagues, people she interviewed on television, viewers who sent unusual letters or emails, anyone who expressed fixation or obsession with her publicly or privately. The cell phone data analysis takes on new meaning. Investigators are not just looking for any phone that pinged towers near Nancy's house. They are looking for phones that ping those towers repeatedly over time. Surveillance patterns. Someone driving past frequently enough to learn routines, but not so frequently as to draw attention. The DNA evidence becomes critical. The glove found 2 miles from Nancy's house. The biological material potentially left inside the house. If that DNA does not match anyone in CODIS, investigators turn to genetic genealogy, building family trees, narrowing from millions of possibilities to hundreds to dozens to individuals. The $1.2 million reward now serves a different purpose. It is not trying to entice kidnappers to return Nancy for money they clearly do not want. It is trying to convince someone who knows something to come forward despite the risk. Someone knows. Someone has seen behavioral changes in a person they know. Someone has heard conversations that seemed odd at the time but make terrible sense now. Someone has noticed unexplained absences or strange stress or suspicious activity. That someone might come forward if they believe the reward is worth the risk of cooperation. Greg Rogers said he has worked cases where rewards made all the difference. He is hopeful someone will decide the reward in this case is worth the risk. The investigation has transitioned from massive boots-on-ground searching to methodical detective work. From 400 agents deployed across Tucson to a dedicated task force of homicide detectives and FBI agents assigned specifically to Nancy's case. That task force is reviewing 10,000 hours of video footage, frame by frame, looking for vehicles that appear repeatedly, faces that show up in unexpected places, patterns that reveal surveillance or planning. They are processing 40,000 tips, cross-referencing against known information, following up on anything that aligns with the profile emerging from expert analysis. They are waiting for the DNA analysis to produce results through genetic genealogy. That process takes time. Building family trees from partial DNA matches requires patience and methodical work. But it has solved cases that seemed unsolvable. It caught the Golden State Killer after 40 years. It can work here. The investigation is narrowing. The pool of suspects is shrinking. The evidence is building towards someone specific. Because when you understand this was targeted and not random, when you understand this was not about money, when you understand Nancy was chosen for specific reasons, the universe of possibilities contracts dramatically. Someone local or familiar with the area, someone who knew Nancy or knew of her, someone who had access to information about her vulnerabilities, someone who planned this over time, someone whose life changed after February 1st in ways people noticed. That is a much smaller pool than random criminal committing opportunistic crime. That is a solvable case. That is a profile that narrows to individuals rather than categories. After 1 month, after 10,000 hours of video reviewed, after 40,000 tips processed, after extensive analysis by some of the most experienced criminal profilers in the country, after extensive media coverage and public attention, and a $1.2 million reward, one truth has become clear. Nancy Guthrie was not a random victim. She was not chosen by chance. She was not taken because someone drove past her house and saw an opportunity. She was researched. She was observed. She was selected deliberately based on characteristics that made her the target someone wanted. Whether that selection was based on her age and vulnerability, whether it was based on her connection to a famous daughter, whether it was both, whether it was something investigators have not yet fully understood, Nancy Guthrie was chosen intentionally, specifically, with planning and forethought. And someone knows who made that choice. Someone has noticed behavioral changes in a person they know. Someone has heard conversations that seemed strange. Someone has seen stress or anxiety or unexplained absences. Someone knows something that could bring Nancy home. The FBI continues to offer $50,000 for information. Nancy's family continues to offer $1 million. Tips can be submitted anonymously. No one needs to provide their name. No one needs to risk exposure. Call 1-800-CALL-FBI or contact the Pima County Sheriff's Department at 520-351-4900 or submit a tip through 88 Crime. Someone out there has seen something. Someone out there knows this person, his changed routine, his strange obsession, his disappearance from normal life after February 1st. $1.2 million is waiting, and Nancy's family is waiting. Subscribe to Crime Uncovered for updates as this investigation continues, as DNA results emerge, as the task force narrows suspects, as the evidence builds toward resolution. Hit that like button if you believe understanding why Nancy was chosen is the key to finding who chose her. Tell us in comments, do you think this was about Nancy's vulnerability or about Savannah's fame? What detail stands out most to you? Because here at Crime Uncovered, we don't just tell stories. We analyze evidence. We follow expert analysis. We search for truth in cases that deserve answers. Nancy Guthrie deserves answers. Her family deserves answers. And somewhere, the person who knows those answers is watching to see how close investigators are getting, watching to see if someone will recognize him, watching to see if the evidence will lead back to him. Expert analysis has told us who to look for. Someone local, someone who knew Nancy or knew of her, someone whose routine changed after February 1st, someone living under stress while trying to appear normal, someone who chose Nancy Guthrie deliberately, specifically, for reasons that made sense only to him. Find that person. Bring Nancy home.